I was wrong about homosexuality in the Bible. And before you invest time in this video that you wish you hadn't invested in, I'm going to prove to you that homosexuality is not a sin. To be fair, I'm going to start proving to you today that homosexuality is not a sin. It's going to take several videos to explain all of this. Now, I was raised as Nazarene. First, let's see, from the age of 6 until about 16, I was a member of the Nazarene Church until my parents got a divorce, and divorce in the Nazarene Church is, well, they're just not very big on it, and my mom had to leave, and my dad just left the family. My mom had to leave the church. Nonetheless, we didn't talk much about homosexuality back then. This was the 1960s into the 70s, and it just, I don't know if it was taboo or what, but we didn't talk about it. I never heard anything about homosexuals at all. Then I moved to Arkansas. I was raised in Illinois. We moved to Arkansas, and I graduated down there in high school. Then I went into the military. While I was in Arkansas, I started attending a Southern Baptist church. I didn't know what Southern Baptists were. I didn't know now what they are. I didn't know then. And we started to hear a little more about homosexuality. I realized that there were guys, a couple that were nobody was out back in the early 80s, but there were a couple of guys who I suspected as homosexuals to be homosexuals, and I didn't mind. I didn't care about gay men. What do I care? Anyway, then I went into the military, and time went on, and I was really against the church based upon the things that I had learned in the past from the Southern Baptist Church and the Nazarene Church, and I started to see the hatefulness of the church, and I just was against them, and I started to not believe in God. I just didn't believe in God. Then I got to be 40, and one day I was afraid. I hate to say that, but I came to Jesus because I was afraid. That was that. I was afraid I was going to die and go to hell. Specifically, I was afraid I was going to get in a wreck on the interstate. I live in Nashville now. Afraid I was going to get in a wreck on the interstate and die and go to hell. And I didn't want to do that. And I started hoping there was a God. You hear me? I prayed. I said, God, if I... Bottom line, that was when I was 40. I became a Christian. I started to believe that Jesus died and came back to life. That was my sticking point, and I believed it. And when I believed it, I was changed. I became a new person, a new heart, knew everything. I believed in Jesus. That was 22 years ago. I'm 62 now, and when I was 60, yes, I wanted to create a YouTube channel because I felt that we were mistreating the gay man, the transgender person, the lesbian, the gay woman, the intersex person, the asexual person. I felt we were mistreating them, and I wanted to do something about it. I started a YouTube channel. At this point, I still believed that homosexuality was a sin. I mean, the Bible says, and my favorite pastor, I got tired of a lot of pastors because they always are like, well, let's talk about the Bible and homosexuality. One, homosexuality is a sin. The Bible says homosexuality, it is a sin. And I just got tired of that. But I heard one pastor who was loving, and he did touch on it. He said, guys, I'm sorry, but homosexuality is a sin. I've studied the Bible hoping that it was not, and it is. And I thought, well, surely he's not wrong. And I've heard this all my life, and here's a guy who doesn't want homosexuality to be a sin. He says it is. He's studied. He's a pastor, great pastor. So homosexuality is a sin. That's what I believe. So I had to study. I'd read the Bible 9 times by this time, read it through, I began to study, and I just saw no reason to believe that homosexuality was not a sin. But I was wrong. I started because when you have a YouTube channel, if you want to present true information, you've got to study. You've got to research. You need to know. Or if you reach a channel written by a guy who doesn't know, then pretty soon you're going to realize that you're wasting your time. And I hope to not be a person who is wasting your time. So I studied. And pretty soon, well, actually not very soon, probably 6 months, surely not a year. February 2023, I started the YouTube channel. It's up to almost 2 years now. And I saw I saw a YouTube video by a guy, a pastor, who said homosexuality is not a sin. And he began to talk about it, and it made sense. And this was an old video, and it only had about 6, 7, 8 videos. Old channel, I say. So I started researching more on the internet, and if you search homosexuality and Christianity, homosexuality and sin, you're only going to find things that are written by your normal Christian. Churches, other things that point out homosexuality. It's clear homosexuality is a sin, was what they would say. For instance, I came upon one that talked about what happens in prisons when men rape men, all right? Or pedophiles, men who are after children. And when it comes to children, sometimes it's male children. And it turns out into them raping boys, even if they can get the boy to really care for them. And those heterosexual men they're pedophiles. That's the nicest way I could say it. I saw, and it stuck with me. I saw the Shawshank Redemption once. I've seen it several times, but the first time I saw it, Andy was talking to Red, and Andy was probably about to be raped by a gang in this prison. And he said to Red, he says, I don't suppose it would make any difference for me to tell them that I'm not homosexual. And Red said, well, they're not homosexual either. And I thought, and I thought about that for a long time. Red, it made a point. And when I started hearing about Sodom and what happens in prison with men and men, I started seeing, it wasn't always referred to as this, but generally it was referred to what happens in prison as homosexuality. And I thought back to what Red said to Andy. And I read this again, what I was reading on the internet, and it was talking about homosexual activities. And I thought, wait a minute, because I had read the Bible, like I said, 9 times, and these men in Sodom were about to rape these angels who presented as men, I believe. And I thought, that's not a homosexual activity. That's rape. Yes, it's men raping men, but homosexuality, being gay, means that you're attracted to other men. Frequently, you fall in love with other men. Sometimes you get married because you love this person, and you have sexual relations. But you're not raping the other person. You're not raping the other person. You're not having sex, unnatural sex, a heterosexual man raping a boy is not homosexual activity. Homosexual activity is falling in love, having picnics, going out with friends and taking your...
Guys, I'm sorry. You know, the little warning that pops up when your cell phone is low on power. It says low on power. You want to enter low power mode or whatever. That popped up on my phone and I didn't know it. And I kept talking for another 15 minutes. I kept talking for what in reality should have been not a 25-minute video, but 3 8-minute videos, perhaps. This series is actually going to have to be 10 or 11 videos. I know that now. But what you just saw was the beginning of Christianity in my life, how I went from believing that homosexuality was a sin, being gay was a sin, to knowing that it is not through study and understanding and, frankly, gay friends. What's coming is the rest of what you did not hear today about why Christians believe incorrectly that being gay is a sin. An in-depth study of 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 9 and 10, the most recent of the clobber passages to be thrown up in my face, and how homosexuality, how it came to be in the Bible when actually it started out to be masturbation, talking about masturbation, and how that turned into being gay. Anyway, I am sorry. There's more to come. Believe me.